Hey class, I'm here with your linear equations test review. So very similar to the test that you took in the first semester. This is going to have 14 questions. 12 of them are going to be multiple choice and 2 of them are going to be short answer that'll have multiple parts and each part is worth a certain amount of points depending on the problem. I'm going to do 2 sample ones very similar, so you definitely want to watch all the way to the end of the video to make sure you can get those. I'm going to talk kind of fast so that it's not very long. If you need to pause, if you need to go back and rewind and watch a part over so that you understand it, please do. And please email me if you've got any questions on anything before you take the test. Also, this worksheet that I'm going to be working through, I'm going to give you a blank one so you can print it and fill it out with me as you watch the video, or I will also upload the one that I write on after I'm done with this video, so you will also have a copy of the notes. You can use this on your test. All right, so first of all, we've got some very helpful formulas for you. These are going to be your slope formula. Let me try and get my marker on. Your slope formula and your linear equations formula. Those are pretty much the 2 formulas that you're going to use. Again, print this, write them down, have it with you when you take the test. So the first section of your test is going to be about proportional relationships. This was the very first thing that we worked on when we started way back in the beginning of January. So 2 things for proportional relationships. They must have an equal ratio or fraction for all parts, and I'll talk about that a little more in depth. And they must go through the origin, that's the middle or 0, 0 on our graph, or they must have 0, 0 on the table. So we'll look at some examples of that. So there's 2 different ways, actually there's more than 2, but I'm going to show you 2 different ways that you can figure out if something has a proportional relationship. So if we look at this table, from -4 to 0, you can think, how would I do that using math? How would I go from -4 to 0 using math? Well, the answer is you would add 4. And to go from 0 to 4, you would also add 4. So that number is the same. So far, so good. We're proportional. On the bottom of our table, we're going from 1 to 2. What math would I use to go from 1 to 2? I would add 1. What math would I use to go from 2 to 3? I would add 1. So that's good. We're proportional. We're adding 1 in the y's and we're adding 4 in the x's. The problem is, if you look right here in the center, 0, 2 means it's not going through 0, 0. It's going to be linear. It's going to make a line, but it's not going to be proportional because it doesn't go through 0, 0. So this is not a proportional relationship. If we look at the next table, looking at our x values, to go from 4 to 2, using math, that would be subtracting 2. And to go from 2 to 0, again, subtracting 2. So far, so good. And then in our y's, to go from -5 to -10, this would actually be adding 5. It's a little tricky with the negatives, but we're going up 5. And then from -5 to 0, again, adding 5. So this is good. They're the same. It's proportional. And our table has that 0, 0. So that means that's proportional. That's good. That's what we're looking for. Now, if there was a multiple choice question that gave you pictures of graphs and said which one of these graphs is proportional, you're looking for a line. It has to be a line. And it has to go through the origin. Again, the origin is that part right there, 0, 0. It can be negative slope, positive slope. As long as it goes through the origin and is a line, proportional, right? The next section of your test is going to be writing equations from graphs, from word problems, from all kinds of different things. So I'm going to do 2 examples. I've given you kind of the step-by-steps. We always use y equals mx plus b. M stands for slope, and b stands for our y-intercept. I recommend that you find the slope by counting We also learned how to find the slope using our slope formula, which is at the top of this note sheet. But for graphs, when it gives you the graph, you can count, all right? Another hint, remember slope, we also sometimes say is rise over run. The rise is our up or down, and the run is moving left to right. I also did a post about this in the discussion boards that might be helpful to you. So you might want to check out that video discussion board too if you're still having trouble with slope. Now, y-intercept, this part is easy. It's just where the line crosses the y-axis. If you have trouble remembering which one is x and which one is y, totally fine, but there's always a clue. It usually will say y and x. So look for the one that has the y, and then look for where the line crosses that. And then that will go in the space for b. So you're always using this y equals blank x plus or minus blank. All right, so let's look at our first graph here. So I've got 2 points here. We need to figure out what would the slope be to get from point to point. So I am going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I went down 5 spaces, and then I'm going over 1, 2, 3, 4, positive 4 spaces. So that means my slope is -5 over 4. Now let's say I'm going to do this in a different color so you can see. Let's say that you decided to get from that point to that point. You're going to start here and you're going to go up 5. And then you're going to go backwards, which would be -4. You still get the same thing. It is okay for your slope to be +5 over -4. It's the same thing, all right? So don't be afraid that you're going the right way or I need to start with this point. As long as you watch your negatives, either one is fine. Now I'm going to do a third color. Let's do red for the y-intercept. Again, we're looking for where it crosses the y-axis, which would be this point right here. And that point is 0, -1. So that means I'm going to use -1 for my y-intercept. So using this, fill in the blanks, the equation would be y equals -5/4 x minus 1. That is our equation. So what you guys are going to have as multiple choice is it will give you a graph and then it'll give you 4 equation options and you have to pick the one that matches the graph. That's correct. So a little faster on this second one. Let's say we're going from here to here. I am going up 1 over 2, so my slope is 1/2. And the y-intercept where it crosses the y-axis is at -2. So plugging those into the formula, we get y equals 1/2 x minus 2. Okay, so next I want to talk about writing equations from word problems. This is going to be helpful to you not only on the multiple choice part, but on some of your essay questions. So first of all, when you're finding the slope, you are looking for these keywords or per, each, or every. So things like miles per hour, price per shirt, $6 for every snow cone. Anytime you see that per, each, or every, that should be your clue. Oh, this number represents our slope. The y-intercept is always going to be a one-time fee or your starting point. So one-time fees, like if you're joining a gym, the joining fee. If you're growing a tree, the starting height of the tree when you planted it. Those are things that don't change. And they're also things that you don't add every single time. When you join a gym, you only pay that joining fee one time. Rental fees are usually also a one-time fee. So that's what you can look for if you're looking for the y-intercept. And then again, we're still using that fill in the blank y equals blank x plus or minus blank. So I've got an example here about skiing. So Rhea is going skiing and she needs to rent skis. The ski shop charges a fee of $40 to rent skis, and a slope pass is $60 per hour. There's our clue. So write an equation that shows how much money she will spend per hour skiing. Almost every single word problem you have with linear equations is going to give you two numbers. You just have to figure out which one is slope, which one is the y-intercept. So using that fill in the blank, y equals blank x plus or minus blank, $60 per hour, that would be 60x, and then the one-time fee of $40. There's our equation. Simple as that. You can use that setup for every word problem that you're going to have on the test. All right, now, systems of equations. This is the last section or the last module that we did. Systems just is a fancy math word that means more than one. It's like a group of equations. When you get into higher level math, sometimes you'll have 3, 4, 5, 6 equations in a system, but you guys are only going to have 2 on this test. It is important to know they can have one solution, no solution, or infinitely many solutions. If we are looking at a graph, one solution means our lines are going to cross at one point. That is one solution. No solution, on the other hand, would be if you had a graph, and let me use different color just to show you. If you have two parallel lines, those are never going to intersect. That means there's no point that will work in both equations. You will not have an example of infinitely many on your test, but infinitely many is literally when the lines are right on top of each other. That means all of the points on that line would be a solution. So one of the questions you're going to have on your test is it's going to give you a system and it's going to say which of the following points is a solution. Solution means it has to work in both equations. So this is just kind of guess and check. Totally use a calculator for these. Don't try and do them in your head. So don't forget also when you're doing these, the first point or coordinate is x, the second one is y. So I'm just going to plug these into each equation. So my first equation, y equals 4x plus 3. Y was 2. The 4 stays the 4. The x was also 2. And then I've got plus 3. So I'm going to see if this is true. So 4 times 2 is 8 plus 3. 8 plus 3 is 11. 2 does not equal 11. So that tells me right away that A does not work. If it doesn't work in the first equation, it's not going to work in the second. So now let's try B. So again, you can also, what I like to do to keep it really nice and neat is if you write the equation and then plug in your numbers, that can kind of help you keep it organized. So again, x, y. These are nice because they're both the same. So -1 equals 4 times -1 plus 3. 4 times -1 is -4 plus 3 is -1. -1 does equal -1, so that works. Now let's check it in the second equation just to be sure. So -1 equals, watch your negatives here, -1 minus 2. Those double negatives would turn into a positive. +1 minus 2 is -1. So that does work in both equations, so that would be our correct answer. That's how those work. All right. This next example of a graph, very similar to one you have on your test, it will say determine the number of solutions to the system of equations on the graph. If you look at this graph, the two lines intersect at one point, so that means it has one solution. These lines are not going to intersect at a different place. The one solution to this one would be the point 3, -2. So that would be your answer for that one. Graphing the system, again, it might be helpful to go back and look at the video announcement I made on this, but I'm going to do this really fast. When you're graphing, you start at the y-intercept, -3, use the slope to find another point. This slope is 1/3, that means I'm going up 1 over 3. You could also go down 1 and back 3. That was my first line. Second line I'll do in a different color. Starting at the y-intercept is +1, slope -x. That's the same thing as -1/1. So down 1/1, down 1/1, down 1/1. Oh, there it is right there. Where the lines intersect, that is my point. So the solution would be 3, -2. Okay, lastly, we've got the 2 short answer sample questions. These are not identical to the questions you'll have on the test, but they are super, super close. Like the only thing that's different are the numbers. So the first one, you're gonna have a table and then you're gonna have 3 parts. It's important when you're typing your answer that you type part A, then type your answer. Part B, type your answer. It also says show all work. What I want you to do is type out your thinking, or if you're writing on a piece of paper, you can take a picture and upload that picture, and then you can get points for that, right? So part A says choose 2 points from the table, calculate the slope between them, show all necessary work. So I'm going to use the first point and the second point. Please remember when you're looking at the table, we've got X and Y. The best thing that you can do is write these as a point. So we've got the point 4, 3 and the point 2, -2. So to calculate slope using the slope formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That's going to give me -5 over -2. The negatives would cancel out and your slope would be 5/2. You can leave it as a fraction and literally type 5 and then the slash and then 2, right? Choose 2 different points. So I'm going to do 4, 3 again. And then I'm going to do the last point, which is 0, 7. You could have done 2, -2 and 0, 7. That's fine too. It's whatever 2 points you want. So again, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So 7 minus 3 over 0 minus 4. 7 minus 3 is 4. 0 minus 4 is -4. 4 divided by -4, -1 or -1/1. What do the slopes from part A and part B tell you about the relationship? Explain. Since you got different numbers, that means that this is going to be non-linear. You could also say that they are not proportional. You could also say there's no relationship. Your explanation needs to say something like, I got 2 different slopes, or the numbers are not the same, so there's no relationship, they're not proportional. Please don't just type nonlinear or not. You need to give me some sort of explanation. It is worth 4 points, so if you only type one word, I can probably only give you 1 point out of 4. So make sure you type some other stuff. So then looking down at the second short answer, you're going to have a graph on this one. Again, very similar to this. It's a little different because I didn't want to give you the answers to the test, but if you have these notes, it'll help you solve it. So George kept track of the number of drawings he made for each day of the week. Graph shows the relationship between the day, X, and the number of drawings, Y. He already had some drawings complete when he started. Calculate the slope of the linear equation shown in the graph, show all necessary work. You can totally count. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this graph and try and find points where it goes through the corners, right? So I'm going up 2 spaces over 1. So my slope is going to be 2 over 1 or just 2. And you can type it out just like that, 2/1 equals 2. That would be showing your work. What does the slope mean for the relationship between the number of pages written, number of short stories written? So for this one, instead of pages written, we've got drawings and days. All right, and for this equation or this linear graph. If our slope is 2, that means that George is doing 2 drawings per day. That's what that slope means. And every time you look at this, every day, it goes up 2 pages. So that's what that slope means. Interpret. Interpret means you need to tell me something about it. Don't just tell me the number. You need to tell me something. The y-intercept for this is 4, and that's the drawings he started with. Remember, it says that he already started with some drawings complete. So that's the drawings he started with. He started with 4. You could also write, instead of the way I'm writing it, 4 comma the drawings he started with, you could write out the sentence, he started with 4 drawings. And then last step, it says write an equation of the line in slope-intercept form. Well, we already found the slope and we already found the y-intercept. So y equals mx plus b, 2x plus 4. I hope this is helpful to you. I know I talked fast and my writing's not the best. So feel free to go back, pause, whatever you need to do. Email me if you've got questions. Thanks for watching and good luck on your test.